Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Road to Grandmaster Series. This is episode 41. Can you believe it? We've already had 40 episodes of this series. It is 2024, and I'm taking you behind the scenes of my practice, my training games, my lessons with my coach, and my over-the-board tournament recaps. In today's episode, I am going to show you a couple of games from a tournament that I played yesterday on chess.com, where I tied my all-time best score. I think I've gotten the score multiple times in this series already, which means I'm making some progress, and I defeated a couple of very strong grandmasters with some very, very fun games. Before I jump into the games today, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN, or a virtual private network, which allows you to encrypt your connection to the internet so you can browse it privately and anonymously. You know how, for example, you can play on chess.com on focus mode, where you can't see any players' names, you can't see their ratings? Well, Surfshark is kind of like browsing the internet in that same anonymous way. And there are a few reasons why you may want to use a VPN. Like, for example, everybody's favorite thing to do: watch content, or should I say Gotham content. But when you're done watching Gotham content, let's say you're trying to enjoy a movie or a TV show, and you're enjoying that movie or TV show on your favorite streaming service. But all of a sudden, it's the first of the month, and the catalog has changed, and your show is gone. Well, if you use Surfshark and connect to a different location, you may have that show return because you'll be accessing a catalog from a different place on Earth. And the second reason you may want to use a VPN: price discrimination. The next time that you're trying to book a getaway, a hotel, or airfare, use Surfshark and change your location around the world, and you may be shocked at the price difference and the savings that you'll get on any of those things that you're trying to buy. Folks, Surfshark is also available on an unlimited number of devices, and they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if for whatever reason you're using Surfshark and it's not meeting your expectations, or you're really not liking the service, you get your money back, no questions asked. Hey, you know how this works at this point. If you're interested in Surfshark, click that link in the description to get a huge discount and 4 months extra of Surfshark. All right, let's get back to the video. Thank you, as always, to the incredible and very, very, very talented sponsored Gotham. Folks, I've got 3 games for you today. I have the hors d'oeuvre, I have the little appetizer game for you, then a game against a man who's been on this channel a lot. I cannot stop getting paired against Sergei Zhigalko, and also Alexander Donchenko, who is a very strong grandmaster from Germany. I don't know if I've played him much at all, but I have played Zhigalko many, many times. And also, I'm actually going to upload a video to the Patreon. I made a dedicated Patreon page with tons of different content, like Q&A, game review, and deeper YouTube videos. And I'm actually going to analyze every single game from Title Tuesday in some detail there, so I will be uploading that, and you have access to it. So this game I just really enjoyed, and like I said, it's an hors d'oeuvre. You know, it's a little appetizer game for all of you. My opponent started with g3, and I played this move e5. The move g3 is relatively non-committal to the center of the board, and my opponent can then respond, you know, with something. I mean, he can still fight for the center. And that's what he did. He went to an English. Played c4, g3, right? Now, black has many options here. Modern day engines give c6 and d5 as very nice for black. But, you know, I wanted to play h5. And this is a very fun way to challenge somebody who is looking for a boring and relatively positional and straightforward game. And I'm trying to get my opponent to also commit the h-pawn and try to play h4 potentially. My opponent played knight c3 and actually allowed me to play h4. So already psychologically, I'm very happy. And taking here is, of course, very bad. It's not a good move. You double your pawns. You probably will no longer castle that direction. My opponent went here, and I simply played knight to c6. Now, this pawn will stay here. It's just going to be a thorn. It's always going to be a warning. If I develop my bishop out this way, I will also put a little bit of pressure. And one of the ways I like to play this position is bishop c5, a6, and put the bishop on a7, because the bishop in the center is susceptible to various pawn attacks, and you don't really want your bishop to be used as a piñata. By the way, I am working on an English course on Chessly, yeah, you will see in that course that the bishop is frequently beaten around. So e3 is the move that my opponent chose here. I went bishop c5. I don't think this is the most accurate move, but I wanted to develop the bishop. My opponent went knight e2, and now it's very clear that the point is to go here. I spent some time. I played d6 here. And the point is that after d4, I was simply going to go bishop b6. And so now my bishop hangs out here. I monitor here. I'm pressuring here. Castling here would be a very bold move, which might even result in an immediate and very swift and brutal punishment. So that's kind of like what I'm holding out hope for in this position. My opponent went a3, trying to play b4, and I simply shut that down with the move a5. And already here, my opponent makes a mistake. My opponent actually kind of loses the game in 9 moves. Like, super low-key, but it takes 9 moves for my opponent to play. And my opponent plays rook b1, which on the surface makes plenty sense, because the idea is b4 and c5. Now, I have many moves. I can take on g3, I can take on d4, but I came up with a nice little combination of moves here that immediately lands me in a winning position. Besides a check and a capture, the most forcing move in chess is an attack. And bishop f5 is a surprisingly difficult move to meet. If you play rook a1, I mean, you just kind of lost time, and I'm going to very quickly develop. But if you go here, you attack my bishop, but you've completely lost control of the center. Now I have 3 things attacking this, and I play bishop to g4, which pins the knight to the queen and sets up a very nasty follow-up. Now I am straight up threatening to take on d4, but it's even worse than that, because if you play f3, it looks like I have to move my bishop. But you don't have to address a threat if you can create one of equal or exceeding danger, which is, what did I just say? I felt like I just got electrocuted. You don't have to address a threat if you can create one of an equal or exceeding nature. And h3 here would be killer, because the bishop has to leave, and then bishop f3, and if take rook here, I mean, I have rook h2, and the position is dreadful. So my opponent here plays d5, but now before I play knight d4, I throw in this move, and the reason I haven't been playing that move is because h3, the bishop simply moves. But now that I control g4, the bishop is stuck, and knight t4, and black is completely winning. So a complete takeover of this game from rook b1. This is what we call an initiative in chess. It's when you create threats, multiple moves in a row, which improve your position, and now the game is over. Here I played knight to f3 check, king d1, and the very simple and straightforward bishop takes pawn. So now not only am I dominating, I'm also a pawn up. And I was very happy with how I converted this game. I played bishop takes, I pinned the knight, then I repeated here and was like, you know what if I just trade the queens? Like, white's only active piece is the queen. So we traded queens, and how do I just end the game now? Like, of course I'm better, I'm a pawn up. I'm thinking b6, slowly play the position. No. There's a king in the center of the board. Pawn break, striking in the center. Threats of taking, threats of knight f6. My opponent plays rook g1. I jump in with the knight, and I increase the pressure. And yeah, the position is just disintegrating. You can't even take, because after this there is a fork. So now I'm up 2 pawns. I centralize my pieces, and I simply castle because I have the luxury. My opponent cannot move anything. I thought this was a very nice idea. Just a calm little pawn to c6, just removing more pawns from the center of the board. Knight g4 check. And here I'm an idiot, so I missed forced checkmate in 11 moves with check, king e1, knight f3 here. And I needed to play bishop to d3 here with the threat of knight g takes h2, rook h2, knight h2, king g2, king g1, rook f2 with the threat of rook to g2 as well as knight to f3. The opponent has to sacrifice here bishop d1, and now rook g2, king h1, knight f1, and the game is over. I'm an idiot, so instead of that, I just did this, and the position is still completely winning, and I managed to win the game. I just thought this was such a fun game. Like, from the opening, you just, one inaccurate move, bishop f5, and then you take control of the light squares, you shove the bishop backwards, and you get in there, and the white position totally falls apart. I thought it was a nice little appetizer game. What I did not expect in this tournament was then to play very well down the stretch. The tournament was kind of up and down. I've had multiple games against Zhigalko on this channel. I mean, he kind of ends up in all of my compilations. Like, it seems like if I beat Sergey, then I, have a good tournament. Now, I actually respect Sergey a lot. He's not just one of these online players. You know, he plays Hikaru a lot. He's like 3,000 online in this game. He's a little underrated. At his peak, he was 2696 FIDE. Like, Shigalko was a professional player for over a decade. I mean, he was 2,700 level. 2696 in 2011. There is such a thing as inflation. I mean, he was a beast. He's played in the World Cup, multiple-time Belarusian champion. I think he was individual European champion. I think he won a World Youth Championship. Like, this dude is a monster, you know? And to be able to play him, and we had a very complicated game. I played my, from the E4 course on Chessly. If you don't have it, you should have it. The A3 Sicilian. And we got a very imbalanced game. I've played him many, many times. I took a risk early in this game, and the pawn structure that we got from the opening was super weird. This was the position. Just very imbalanced game. I mean, he has this pawn cluster, but it's kind of hard for him to move it forward because everything is weak. He went queen a5, which makes sense. He was trying to go here. I played this move a4 because I thought if he plays bishop a6, I simply block with knight b5. The computer wants me to play queen e1. I don't know how human that is. Rook b8, and now I thought I was very clever here. I went knight b5. So I thought if he wants to play bishop to a6, then okay, I can play c4. And if he plays a6, well, now we have the same position, but now he won't be able to put his bishop there. So I thought this was very sophisticated. He played knight to b4, attacking my pawn on c2. And then I played d3, defending my pawn, and bishop b7. So position's equal. We're having an equal battle here. He's got some pressure on my queen side. I thought about bishop to f4. I ultimately didn't play it because I thought the rook moves. I thought the rook is not that good here. So I should just leave it there. And I thought, okay, knight to e5. With a very straightforward idea. I would like to trade the bishops, and then I am threatening knight takes d7. So he took my bishop, I took, and now the threat is knight takes d7, or so I thought. Knight takes, queen e6, with a fork on the king and the knight. So he goes back to c7. And I really liked what I was developing here with bishop to f4. The computer thinks I'm stupid, but I really quite liked it. Instead of putting my bishop on f4, what I should have done is I should have just played f4, left my bishop home for a second. It's not easy for him to make a move. Like, if he plays d6, the e6 pawn is drastically weakened. Drastically. Rook e1 is on the way. So f4 would have been nice. I actually thought here, though, that he was getting himself into trouble. But bishop d6 would have been really nice. And if I play rook e1 defending my knight, he can play knight to e8, which I gotta tell you is not a move that looks like it makes much sense. But that is the point. Can't really say I considered knight to e8, and neither did he, so I'm exonerated. King to g1 played, and here I thought, wait a minute. I'm gonna go rook b1, and that's what I did. I went c4 first, and then rook b1, and suddenly I've got a lot of pressure. I mean, I thought I made a lot of nice improvements to my position. Some of you sometimes wonder, when do you give up a queen for two rooks? And the answer is always, it depends on the position. In this particular position, I don't think the rooks coordinate together very well because they are so far apart. So if my opponent played here, as we see, the advantage is immediately plus 1.2. And the reason being, the rooks just cannot deal with the pressure. Bishop e5, queen e5, and black has too many weaknesses to be successfully calling the shots, you know? Okay, the rooks can team up, but I win all your pieces. So that's the problem. So he went queen c7. Now I replayed bishop to f4, still thinking that I was in good shape. Here I blundered something very silly, actually. I blundered that he could play g5, which I thought he couldn't play because I had a tactic. What I should have played is I should have traded and then and only then gone bishop to f4. And here g5 doesn't work because I have knight takes d7 and the rook is hanging. That's the point. But the way that he played it, now there is no hanging rook. Now g5 is working. I didn't realize that was the difference. But neither did he. Neither did he. And suddenly I'm taking his bishop. And in many of these endgames, I'm simply better because my bishop is better than the knight. Not to mention, I have 31 seconds versus 9, which for me is a big deal. I'm always playing slower than my GM opponents. But here I was playing a little bit faster, so I played queen e3, increasing the... This was a great move, e5. Forced my bishop over here. But he lost the pawn. And again, with 5 seconds on the clock, it's really difficult to defend yourself. But here, he locked in. He kind of did the lean forward meme, and he started playing very well. He started defending himself. And I was really struggling to break through his defenses here. So I also got a bit low on time, and now it's a scramble. Now it's simply a scramble. He plays queen e8. I keep trying to improve the position. I thought I snuck in, but he's just, everything is protected, which is pretty ridiculous. So I thought, all right, the only way to make progress here is with my pawns. So I got to play h4, g4, g5. Like, this is the only way. I mean, everything in my position's protected, but I can't really move anything. Take. He goes back. I went g6. Now my threat is queen h4, king g8, queen h7 here, queen h8, and try to win the position like that. He goes king to g8 here, and I simply made another improving move. I was just trying to kind of improve my position, and here he blundered in the scramble. My next move, if he repeated, was probably f4. Just try to, get the queen in somehow. I don't know, something like that. But he went here, and in an unfortunate turn of events, had he played the last move, then he would have been able to play knight g8 and hold. But because he actually walked the king in, he's just made it. It's just the back rank checkmate, knight c8 and queen e8. And I was kind of happy because in this game, from a relatively balanced game, I just played faster, which for me is always a problem against good players. I always tank. I always spend a lot of time, and here I just played, and there's a reason he couldn't capitalize on some of these mistakes. He didn't have a lot of time, he just didn't have a lot of time, and it felt like he was always trying to beat the clock. He could have played g5. I miscalculated. It's blitz. It happens, and then ultimately I won a pawn, and I applied sustained pressure in this game. I've beaten Zhigalko 4 times now, which I'm gonna take that. All right, I don't care if it's blitz. I'm gonna take it, and that's a very nice result. This next result to me is even more special. This guy's really good, man. We'd only played 1 time. We played January of this year. And I don't remember this game at all, because it happened, the entire year ago. And, in this game I played, I guess it was an interesting battle, this one. I'm vaguely remembering this game. Yeah, it was equal. I mean, I was equal with him for a while. This was before I announced the road to GM. I was actually better. Wow. I was just straight up a pawn. And, yeah, I remember this game. I sacked my queen for his bishop, and I did this, and yeah, and then ultimately I lost this game in a time scramble. Typical Gotham, amoeba brain 1.0 style. So we got paired yesterday, and I didn't know that. Again, I actually, in this event, I was hiding the usernames, but I figured I was playing somebody good, and he played c4. And then he played g3 and bishop g2. So he played, in the previous game, he played knight f3. In this game, he played this. I played e6. I mean, this is what I've been playing. And then here, against this g3 setup, modern day engines love to play d4. Stockfish absolutely craves central control. It really likes to push the pawn there and then defend it. And here I actually played an opening, which was shown to me by a very strong player who shall go nameless. There's a lot of ways to play here. And I played knight c6. And the thing is, when you commit this pawn really early, it's very normal to play e6, d5, knight f6 on autopilot, because that's just what you play. But you can actually play it like this. And I was pretty excited. I've played this in a few blitz games. I don't really think this is a serious weapon for classical chess, but who knows? Maybe I will play it. I mean, this is a little bit edgy, and if your opponent is not careful, as you will see in this game, my opponent did not particularly respect me, which is you can do at your own risk. He played d3. I think the best way for white to play is to address the pawn. I mean, I think white should try to get rid of the pawn. My opponent just sort of played around the pawn, but now I show the point. Not only do I have a death grip on d4, and if white plays a3, I'm always going to stop, that. I have a sneaky idea, which my opponent did not really acknowledge. The idea is that you push these pawns. You actually just go straight full on, you know, Ooga Goblin mode and just H5, G5, caveman style. And that's how you play. And the worst part for my opponent is this move, which is kind of like a, you know, absent-minded, innocent, developing move. Maybe my opponent is trying to play knight e5 and open up the position. Yeah, I just played f6, which looks really stupid, and I would not advise beginners and intermediates to play like this. But now not only do I get to play my attack, the opponent has to make a move backwards. I think this move really spooked him, because he, or at least the next couple of moves, because suddenly here comes g5. So now you've spent 2 moves moving the bishop, and here comes h5. And you would think, like, White played normally. White developed in the center. White developed the knights and bishops. So now White obviously is just going to break apart my stupid position, and he's going to, you know, he's going to play knight c2, e3, etc. But somehow, he just runs out of time. I play g4. Now his knight has to leave. He could go to h4 and play like this, but this pawn's a huge weakness. I can play f5. Computer doesn't love it, but, you know, I can... Maybe that was the best practical option, because after knight to e1 and me playing h4, somehow something feels very, very off here. He still has not moved any of the pawns. Now he can't move the f pawn because g3 falls. He cannot take, of course, because I take with a knight, I get the bishop, it's bad news. The only real thing he can do here is probably play b4. These 2 pieces support the b pawn. Now I made a conscious effort never to acknowledge this and just to go straight for the attack. So I took on g3 because I need to open up my rook. And here, he needs to take with the f-pawn, which is not easy to do, because then you think, like, I can't defend h2. I mean, black will play queen e7, you know, and I can't defend the pawn. So he takes with the h-pawn. He's just straight up losing the game. He can't stop this. Like, so my opening worked a charm. Completely worked the charm. I almost regret playing it against him in a blitz game. maybe I would have, you know, caught a GM like this in a classical. Okay, in a 90-minute game, you know, you kind of acknowledge what your opponent is trying to do. He's just lost. He doesn't have time and he doesn't have space. So if he plays e4, I just go queen h7. Now he has to protect against mate. He plays like f3. I play queen h2. I take on g3 with check. If he goes back, I was thinking bishop d6 here, and rook h1 is a very common and beautiful idea. You create a battery, you try to go to h2, you force this, and queen h2 mate. So, like, this is what I was looking at. So he thought here for 54 seconds. And I think about 45 of those 54 seconds were spent going, am I really going to lose to this absolute moron? Like, he's obviously going to make a video about this. And here is the absolute moron making a video about it. I'm not an absolute moron. I used to have a lot of negative self-talk, and I would... Listen, one of the things I get accused of on this channel because I'm sarcastic and, you know, annoying, is I'm a narcissist. I am, like, the furthest thing from a narcissist, if you read the definition of that. I frequently make fun of myself and tell you all the things I'm insecure about and not happy about, and so that's always a fun one. So, you know, the negative self-talk aside, that's in the past. I actually believe in myself now to beat most players, grandmasters or not. But he might not. He might still think I'm an idiot. And knight f3. And a German grandmaster once told me, he saw me in person. This was 5 years ago. And he said, you have a very good mouse. That's what he told me. Because we had played some bullet against each other. So he said, you have a very good mouse. I was like, wow. Wow. I mean, my goodness. Pawn takes. He's sacrificing material. He's sacrificing material to remove the blockade and play rook e1 and king f1. And here I was like, look, I'm not going to complicate things. I'm going to try to stay up on the clock. I'm still going to go queen h2 check because, like, why would I not? My queen is now bothering him. And so at this point, what I needed to do is I needed to, A, not do anything stupid. So not just go completely all in, like knight takes g3, which is still actually an okay move, but no need to do that right now. I also need to not underestimate his counterplay, because he does have a lot of pieces, and my king is still stuck in the center. The computer wants e5, and then knight takes g3. The move that I played here was so beautiful, though. I played knight to h4, which is just such a disgusting move. And the point is I'm threatening the bishop, and now I'm still threatening the bishop, and it's trapped. So the only move he has here, which I gotta tell you, I kind of underestimated, was this. Just giving up the bishop to save the other one, and now h5. And the point of h5 is he just doesn't open up this, and if I get out of there and take a step backwards, now he has b5, now he has f4, or actually that's a queen trade, so maybe he'll play like knight takes d4, and I don't know. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna castle. I'm gonna castle my king. b5 is coming, you know, all of this is gonna happen. He plays b5, I simply play knight e5, and I wanted to go g4. This was my point. My queen is defending my knight. Bishop d6 is an idea. Okay, he can take on d4, which is what he did. And I can play g4 here, but I decided, let's develop the bishop. This move looks like it makes sense. The rook comes here, looks a little bit clumsy, could maybe be a target. And I just castled, and I thought, dude, he's gonna play queen a4. I'm gonna play bishop c5. He has no attack at all. My next move is king b8. Like, he's got nothing. So I did everything right. I'm up 20 seconds on the clock, but it wouldn't be a Gotham game unless one dumb thing happened. And I gotta limit that dumb thing. He goes knight b3. All right, he's attacking my bishop. Fair move. My original intention here was to play knight takes d3. This move is simply bad because knight c5, queen a7. So if I play bishop b6, he plays c5. Now, it looks like he's trapping my bishop, but I have this beautiful move a6. And if he takes, I play here, threatening this and this. That's actually kind of disgusting. I didn't see a6, but what I had seen from a distance was that on knight b3, and here I can play bishop f2, which I did not consider. Here, if king f1, the very natural follow-up to all of this, king b8. And that's it. There's no attack. If he plays knight a5, I play g4, I play knight f4, and I just win. He doesn't have any attack here. I thought my move was good too. My move was giving up almost all the advantage because actually he can take my bishop, which I saw. But I thought the point was after gf3, he's mated. He's not mated. It's actually kind of insane. Queen a7, fg, king e2. King to e2. And if queen g2, king e1, he's not mated. He's not checkmated. It's a draw. Knight d3, bishop b5. I have to sacrifice everything. I would like to think if he had taken my bishop, I would have been like, what? And then I would have realized there's no mate. And then I probably would have played king b8. And he probably still would have lost. Because, I mean, it looks like there is some... But, yeah, that was a little bit silly of me. Yeah, but he believed me. He believed me. And now I play knight f3, and now it's lights out. So there was a moment there. There was a moment, and I should have more seriously considered taking a knight d3. But then to find king b8 after that is a little bit tough, you know. But knight f3 jumps in, and he doesn't have enough time to get the optimal attacking setup because I take his rook. And now I threaten mate. So he now has to address that. He took on f3. I took on f3. He took on f3. And now I found a very nice queen h1 check. He has to play here, at which point I would have centralized my queen. Instead of that, he went here. Now I took an h5. And this is a fork. He loses the knight. He loses the game. Here he resigned. Because he simply no longer has any sort of attack. That was a nice game to win. I got revenge. I've never beaten Danchenko, and I finished with 8 points out of 11 in this game. I was very happy. Very fun game. You know, this idea to put the knight on f5, very unorthodox, and then play like this. I think in blitz, this is very hard to deal with as white. It's much easier to attack in blitz than defend. So 8 out of 11. We keep beating GMs. We're 2750 blitz at the moment. At the time of recording the video, my next tournament is in a week, so always nice to continue to beat some strong grandmasters, even if it's blitz. I will upload an analysis of all of these games a little bit later today to the Patreon if you'd like to check it out. It's only $7 a month for the lowest tier, so quite nice. A lot of content on there. And I'll see you all in the next video, whether it's a Road to GM episode or not. Get out of here.